Out of all of Big Finish's then upcoming new Doctor Who related box sets, one of the ones that I was most cynical about was Classic Doctor's New Monsters. Because for one thing I was thinking, do the monsters from New Who really need their own box set? Couldn't we have just started introducing them into the main range? That and Big Finish box sets usually have some sort of purpose or a story arc running through them to justify the collection. Whereas with this one, we had a different monster and a different Doctor for each story. The only thing really bringing them together was the fact that they've got monsters that are featured in New Who involved in each of them. And added to that, as an avid collector of bits of cardboard that CDs and DVDs come in, I mean, just look at this. It's basically just a bit of cardboard but with a thing printed on it. Like, this seriously could be much better. I mean, look at the 10th Doctor one here. Look, it's just so pretty. Just look at that. As you can see here, this is the box set of Chris Morris's Jam. And look, it's got a cut-out stencil of the name in it. It's so cool. Like, this bit of cardboard's just fucking gorgeous. This, it's just cardboard. I mean, come on, man. Couldn't we have a Big Finish box set that's a bit more inventive with its cardboard? How about we make it into a house? But when I actually sat down and started listening to it, all of my cynicism just fell away and I totally fell in love with it. Classic Doctor's New Monsters is some bloody good fun and it gets a fuck ton of big blue likey thumbs up from me, and I totally recommend it to newcomers, long-time listeners, pretty much everyone. You see, I am big enough to admit when I'm being presumptuous. So shut up, haters. Trust me on this one, it may not sound that inspiring, but if you get any of the Big Finish New Who box sets, this is the one that I'd say you should go for. So we start out with setting the 5th Doctor against the Weeping Angels, and the most noticeable thing about Fallen Angels to me was, oh my god, Big Finish have cast Philomena Kunk. I'm not sure whether Diane Morgan's concerned about being typecast as the dim, empty-headed fictional pundit she plays on Charlie Brooker's yearly reviews, but if you've never seen anything with Philomena Kunk in it before, then why the fuck are you still watching me? Type her name into the YouTube search bar right now and watch the whole lot. That is an order. Anyway, so Diane plays Gabby Finch, who's on holiday and exploring the Sistine Chapel with her boyfriend, and throughout I just kept expecting her to say something along the lines of, Michelangelo was a man who painted ceilings for a living, and those ceilings were so good that he was the first man in the world to be considered a fully qualified house painter.
19 centuries ago, there was an industrial revolution which used coals. Coals is a fossil fuel, which means setting fire to dinosaurs.
Okay, fanboy that I am for Diane Morgan, I'll shut up now. So the 5th Doctor arrives in 14th century Rome, where Gabby and her boyfriend have been flung back in time from the 21st century by a weeping angel, and she and the 5th Doctor then stumble across Michelangelo himself in the middle of doing his ceiling. And they find that he's been commissioned to sculpt some statues for a mysterious cult, and the statues are of, yep, you guessed it, the lion people from Woman Who Lived. No, of course it's the fucking angels. Their name is in the title. They are on the cover. You should know how this works by now. Anyway, Fallen Angels is just gorgeous. A lot of people were pointing out that it would be difficult to transpose a highly visual monster into an audio platform. I mean, beyond inserting jump scare sound effects to imply the angels are moving, it'd be difficult to pull off their mystique on a CD. But personally, I didn't have such doubts about it. I've been listening to Big Finish for years now, and I'm used to the old, let's describe the events that we can clearly see happening right in front of us with our eyes trope. Where have you gone, Piero? All I can see is the angel statue in the room that is right in front of me, that I am looking at. While there are some kinda ham-fisted bits like that, Fallen Angels also has some really quite poetic description and some really eerie imagery embedded into its dialogue. That and the story itself is really inventive and full of coherent timey-wimey ideas that make a surprising amount of sense and never get too overcomplicated and break the flow of the story. This one's a real triumph for Big Finish, and I'd definitely say it's the best Angel story since Blink. Judoon in Chains is next up, which obviously sees the return of the Tritivores from Planet of the Dead. Okay, yes, it's the Judoon, and this joke is getting really fucking old now, I'll stop. Okay, so in this one, we've got the 6th Doctor representing the defence in the trial of a Judoon who's deserted his post. And we flash back to the Doctor getting to know Captain Kaibo when he's enslaved by a travelling freak show, and he helps defend the lost Jadoon from his fleet who want him tried for his desertion. Now, when you listen to it, most of you will probably notice immediately that it's essentially the Elephant Man but with a Jadoon in place of Merrick. Which, while I'm here, just a reminder, if you've never seen David Lynch's Elephant Man before, you are doing culture wrong. This must be corrected. Anyway, while it is highly derivative and it takes a little while to get going, I found Jadoon in Chains to be surprisingly enjoyable. Everyone in the story, including the Doctor, keeps on talking about Kaibo as though he's a lost cause and how all Jadoon are born the same, they're stupid, they got tiny brains. But Kaibo goes on to prove everyone wrong. He learns to speak English without his translation device. He learns to read Dickens, and he writes his own poetry. And as I was listening to it, I just kept thinking, yes, 1,000 times yes, this is some fucking beautiful writing. It's just occurred to me that I'm really like a sports fan when it comes to listening to Big Finish. But anyway, out of all of New Who's monsters, the Jadoon are easily one of the goofiest, and when I first heard the premise of Jadoon in Chains, I wasn't entirely sure if they'd managed to get me to actually feel something for the talking Rhino Men Space Police, but with a great script, some awesome sound design and some brilliant performances, I was totally hooked. This story successfully managed to make me feel some emotions in my feelings. Here is a scientifically accurate diagram about how feelings work. Copy this down in your notebooks, this will be on the test. Next up we got Harvest of the Sycorax, which I was really looking forward to because I always felt the Sycorax had more potential than New Who acted on. The Christmas invasion was a mostly camp pantomime with some more serious and horrifying moments, and what I thought I wanted to see was the Sycorax used in the context of a horror story. I just loved the idea of mankind finding this bizarre and hostile alien species far out in space. And I would still like to see the Sycorax used in a horror story someday, but I'll take this one for what it is because this script was totally fucking hilarious from top to bottom. The Seventh Doctor arrives in a future where humans have become totally dependent on a medical-based app on their tablet computers, which advises them when to take pills that control their emotions. It sort of reminded me of David Firth's health reminder videos, which are some of my favourite videos on the internet. That, and speaking as someone who works in the pharmaceutical industry, it really hit close to home for me. It's sort of like an extended absurdist sketch where the Doctor shows up to save some humans who've been totally infantilized by a strange and alien system, where one of our main characters, who is, no word of a lie, called Zanzibar #, can't handle the slightest negative feeling without taking a pill. While the characters in this one aren't exactly that great, there isn't much depth there at all, and given the whole point of the box set is new monsters, the Sycorax themselves don't really have that much to do. It's essentially a base under siege story set in a world formed around a ridiculous idea. But the world that it's set in is just so creative, and I laughed at this episode much more than most other Big Finish plays that fall under comedy, so I can't really complain. I enjoyed the shit out of this one. Now take this pill, and forget you were ill. The last in the box set, the one that everyone was cynical about, is the Sontaran deal. Which, yes, fucking anyone could point out, the Sontarans are an old Who monster. Yes, alright, it's obvious, calm down. When I first heard about this one, yeah, it did seem kinda flimsy that they were calling this one New Monsters, just because they got Mike from the Young Ones back, and Mike from the Young Ones played a Sontaran in New Who. But when I actually listened to it, it started to make a lot more sense that they included it in the box set, because the monster in the Sontaran deal technically isn't the Sontarans. It's the Time War. So the Doctor arrives on the planet Drakis, and for about 15 seconds it's the peaceful magical fairy kingdom it's been for millennia, before a battle in the Time War is suddenly raged above it, and in an instant that ripples out for millennia throughout the planet's history, Drakis is suddenly turned into a wasteland that's always been at war and always will be. Forever. And the Doctor journeys through the post-apocalyptic wasteland with a peacemaking emissary who's actually a dressmaker by trade who can barely use her weapons, and a Sontaran who's been court-martialed and sentenced to ordeal, which is being sent with no weapons or armour into a war zone and left to survive or die. While the jump from Harvest of the Sycorax to this bleak moment in the Time War that sees a return to the tone of the latter half of Dark Eyes is a bit disjointed, once I'd actually settled into the Sontaran ordeal, I saw it for what it was, and it kind of started to make a lot more sense thematically that Big Finish are now doing Time War related things, given the miserable and depressing direction that world events have been going in lately. If you follow world news too closely, like I do, you might be starting to get the feeling as though we're living through the opening phase of one of the most pathetic apocalypses imaginable. And that's reflected in this story. We've got a Sontaran chief who takes needless and dangerous risks in their war against the Rutans, who invades peaceful planets as vanity projects just to make himself look good. And the only people that can stop him are the Doctor, an outspoken pacifist, a dressmaker with no experience of combat, and a disarmed Sontaran in disgrace. And the only way for them to stop him is by a hammy sensationalised stunt. But what's awesome is that they do, and they do it together. Members of these three disparate groups who hate each other uniting for one moment to try and make things better. I mean, they don't actually make things better, they just make it look like everything's better for a moment with a single hollow gesture. It's got a very melancholy ending that asks, is this even really an ending? Well, no, of course it's not. The effects of the Time War are permanent. There's no going back now. It's very bleak, and it's not perfect. Of course it's not. But I'd argue that it's the sort of Doctor Who story that we need right now. While yes, it is resigned to the inevitable, it has got that tiny glimmer of hope in its eyes.